Hey everyone, and welcome to our Q&A presented by Just Love. I'm your host Paula Jane, and I'm talking to Judy Carroll. Judy is an internationally known author. Her books include The Zeta Message, Human by Day, Zeta by Night, and her most recent book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History. Welcome, Judy.
Hi, Paula, and hi, everybody.
Well, today we're going to continue with our discussion on the origins of humans on Earth. We've established that all three levels of grey have to a certain extent been involved. Judy, you highlighted that it includes the mantids and the zetas, along with other higher creator beings. You then went on to say that these other higher beings who've had the most input into our modern-day Earth humans have been the Palladians, the Lyrans, Andromedans, and Syrians, and that these ones often use the grey containers to carry out work down here. Does this cover all of the ones involved?
Yes, just about, Paula, although I know other races have come here to help as well. These ones I mentioned are the ones I'm more familiar with.
Okay, you also said that modern-day humans were bioengineered by creator beings from a primate species. You quoted Braden from his book Human by Design. Humans of Earth differ from chimpanzees in only 2 chromosomes. What does that mean? Was a primate species involved in the origins of humans?
Modern-day Earth humans were first bioengineered from a primate species by an older culture that people know as the Annunaki. The Annunaki themselves had been bioengineered much earlier by the Draconians, using a biped dinosaur species as the base stock. The Annunaki went on to develop earlier versions of modern-day humans, and these are the hominid species whose remains have been found all over the planet. These animal-human beings, that some refer to as the mixtures, were created by the Annunaki mainly to carry out heavy labour. In other words, they were used as slaves. When higher universal beings realised what was going on here, off-planet rescuers were sent down here on a mission to upgrade the mixtures with additional off-planet DNA in order to bring them more into the human kingdom, as opposed to the animal kingdom in which they were still partly trapped.
The Annunaki. You said the Annunaki is another name for the Repterrans, the Earth human reptoids bioengineered by the Draconians. So were the Draconians involved in the origins of humans?
Well, it depends which human species we're talking about. The Draconians were involved in the creation of the earlier Repterran Annunaki humans. The Anunnaki, in turn, were responsible for the creation of the first versions of modern-day humans, which were then later upgraded with more off-planet human DNA to help free them from the slavery imposed upon them by the Anunnaki. Modern-day humans still have a reptilian part in their brains, which has been carried right through from millions of years ago.
Okay, well, what about the reptilians? You said that the only negative reptilians are the earth-bound ones, the Repterrans, who are not extraterrestrial but rather interdimensional, with their bases in what people call the inner earth. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, Paula. As I mentioned before, the Repterrans are a very ancient Earth-human species created by the Draconians, who did come from off-planet. They mixed quite a large portion of their off-planet DNA with that of a biped dinosaur species to create an Earth-human reptoid species. I call these ones Repterrans to differentiate them from other off-planet reptilians. The term comes from the word terra, T-E-R-R-A, the Latin name for Earth.
Okay.
The off-planet reptilians coming here are fine. They're evolved and a part of the present-day rescue mission, but the Repterrans have remained stuck down here, some reincarnating as Earth humans and others existing in parallel dimensions that are part of the inner Earth. There are many caverns and tunnel systems within the Earth, but what I refer to as the inner Earth consists of other dimensions, some of higher frequencies and some of lower frequencies. Lower evolved beings cannot come here from other planets, but they can come through from what could be termed the lower astral planes of Earth. This is where all the negative interference is coming from. This is what I mean when I say that no negative extraterrestrials are coming here, but negative entities are coming from the inner Earth planes.
And the whites, how were they involved?
Okay, again, there are a number of different ones involved here, some of whom are interacting with Earth plane humanity. Some, the positive ones, are mainly from off-planet, Pleiadians, Lyrans, etc., and others not so positive are here from the inner Earth.
I remember you did state previously that there are many different ones, some positive and some negative. You talked a little on the inner Earth whites, which were a negative group who helped the Nazi regime gain access to anti-gravity ships. These are often mistaken for off-planet ships, but they are not. The inner Earth group of whites planned to make an overt takeover of Earth after the Second World War using Hitler as their puppet. This group is not to be confused with off-planet groups, such as the tall white Zetas, the Pleiadians, and the Lyrans. A few questions here. They didn't succeed in an overt takeover of Earth after the Second World War using Hitler as their puppet. Can you comment on this?
Yes, Hitler was basically a megalomaniac and they lost control of him. He tried to do too much too quickly. Negativity always ends up imploding upon itself.
So how did this inner Earth group of whites have the technology to replicate anti-gravity ships if they are not off-planet but rather from the inner Earth?
Okay, the inner Earth group do have a very high level of technology passed down from their off-planet forebears. This technology was then enhanced when even higher technology was back-engineered from genuine off-planet ships that have crashed on Earth. I know that the Nazis got hold of at least one of these ships and built what was known as the Nazi Bell. What I find interesting is that ships photographed by contactees back in the 1950s very closely resemble this Nazi-built UFO, the Nazi Bell. I think a number of them were built, and being anti-gravity ships, they could easily be mistaken for being from space. My feeling is that the so-called space visitors from back then were actually from the inner Earth. And of course they told contactees that they'd come here from Venus or wherever because they certainly didn't want Earth people to know that their headquarters were and still are right here on Earth.
Yeah, very interesting. Can you tell us about the spiritual input into humans? We all have a life force, a divine spark. Can you expand on that?
Yes, we all have the spark of divinity within, which is our real self. I've talked before about the greys appearing as a light body or orb when they show themselves in their true form, but we're all like this when we step out of our container or our body. Earth humans clothe themselves in a biological container to enable them to experience physicality. But we are not our body. In reality, we're all souls or spirits. The real us is pure conscious awareness, which is eternal and can therefore exist without a body.
Can you talk to us about the several depopulation and repopulation events on Earth?
Yes, there have been several. The first one happened with the ant people who ended up almost destroying themselves and the planet with technology beyond their spiritual ability to handle wisely. Another cataclysm happened with the Nibiru event involving the Annunaki, which goes back millions of years when they launched an attack on Earth from a base they had on the planet known as Maldek. Then another cataclysm happened in connection with the destruction of Atlantis, which I believe is the basis for the Great Flood story, which is held in the collective consciousness of cultures all over the planet.
Can you now talk to us about the inter-species wars that have been waged on and around Earth? We've touched on this before, but what is necessary to highlight here is that it's an inter-species war and not higher planetary groups. As you have already pointed out, higher planetary groups work compatibly together in oneness.
Yes, the first was the one fought between the two groups of ant people that I just mentioned. Then another followed between the ant people and the Repterrans, when the Repterrans wanted complete control of the planet and set out to annihilate the ant people who were here first. Another occurred later when off-planet people came here to intervene to try to help the mixture slave race created by the Annunaki. This battle is referred to in the Indian text known as the Mahabharata as a battle between the Devas and the Asuras.
Again, there's a lot of information here, so a quick recap. You said that modern-day Earth humans were first bioengineered from a primate species by a previous Earth human culture that people know as the Anunnaki. This older version of modern-day humans was a hominoid species designed to be used as slaves, but when higher universal beings realized what was going on here on Earth, off-planet rescuers were sent down here on a mission to upgrade these mixtures, these animal-human beings, with additional off-planet DNA in order to bring them more into line with the human kingdom as opposed to the animal kingdom. I know it's not easy to put a time frame on this, but how long ago approximately did this particular event in the origins of modern-day humans occur?
Yeah, the Pleiadian Illyrian group who did the upgrade arrived here about 900,000 years ago. Author Valerie Barrow talks about this in her book entitled Alchiringa. The upgrading began in what is now the country of Australia.
You also said that the remains of these mixtures, these animal-human beings, have been found all over the planet. Is this knowledge of such findings hidden?
No, it's in many books on human origins. It's not always accurate. That's the problem. Archaeologists claim that the earliest human fossil remains have been found in Africa, but the humanising process actually began in Australia. Information is provided in many books on Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, etc. Many remains of earlier hominid species have been found.
Wow. So back to unpacking a little more of what you've said. Modern-day humans were bioengineered by creator beings from a primate species. Got that. You also quoted Greg Braden from his book Human by Design, saying that humans of Earth differ from chimpanzees in only 2 chromosomes. You didn't specify chimpanzees. We just covered how modern-day Earth humans were first bioengineered from a primate species by the Annunaki, and the Anunnaki themselves had been bioengineered much earlier by the Draconians, using a biped dinosaur as the base stock. So what is the significance of the chimpanzee?
Okay, I'm no expert on the evolution of the primates, but from what I understand, chimpanzees are the closest relatives to humans of all the primate species, differing as they do in only 2 chromosomes.
Okay. Well, just one more question. Does evolution exist for humans?
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. Evolution is both a natural and also an assisted process. Higher creator beings come here and do a bit of genetic tweaking. Then they stand back and allow nature and natural selection to work for a while. Then a bit more tweaking takes place. Once we evolve to human form, evolution becomes more of a mind-spirit process rather than being physical. Evolution is all about adaptation to change, and the change that's happening down here now is to do with stepping up from 4th to 5th world consciousness. So evolution for Earth plane humanity is to do with expansion of consciousness.
Oh. Wow, we've sure covered a lot of information in this session, Judy. So just to remind our listeners, Judy's latest book, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, and her other 2 books, The Zeta Message and Human by Day, Zeta by Night, are available through Amazon and Kindle. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel. Thanks, Judy, and we look forward to our next Q&A session. Bye for now.